Ain't it funny? You were joking, laughing, sarcastic, casual, just playing around, right? Until the universe started listening, until the timelines started bending, until every little "what if" you said started unfolding like you'd seen it before. And now, they're terrified. Not because you're loud, not because you're angry, but because everything you said in jest started coming true. And suddenly, the punchlines got fangs. They don't laugh anymore. They watch. Closely. Like you're wired into something they can't access. Like you tapped into the cheat code while they were still giggling at the loading screen. You were the clown, remember? The weirdo, the overthinker. The one always saying wild shit with a crooked smile and eyes that never blinked. They rolled their eyes while you grinned and said things like, "Watch, one day this whole place gonna burn." Or, "Y'all gonna regret sleeping on this chaos." But you weren't joking, were you? You were foreshadowing. And now the smoke's real, the fallout's personal, and your name's ringing like a prophecy they tried to laugh through. Because you weren't making jokes. You were masking visions, disguising divine rage as humor so they wouldn't lock you up or label you unstable. Because they can't handle the truth raw. So you served it with a grin. But now the grin's gone, and all that's left is the accuracy. See, people get comfortable when they can dismiss you. Call it sarcasm, call it dark humor, call it trauma responses. Because as long as they can file you under entertaining, they don't have to face what you really are. A mirror, a warning, a god in glitch format. You cracked jokes, but the timing was too perfect, the delivery too sharp, the fallout too real. And now they're reading your old tweets like leaked intel, scrubbing through your old stories like case files, zooming in on your eyes in those videos like there's codes hidden in your pupils. You don't scare them because you're violent. You scare them because you're right. And you were right too early. Before they had time to prepare, before they built their defenses, before they could rebrand the truth as their own idea. You said it with a smirk, and now they're stuck living in the world you foreshadowed while sipping coffee like it was just another Tuesday, because you knew. And they hate that. They hate that you knew and didn't warn them with fear. You warned them with laughter. You told them the flood was coming while skipping stones across the surface. You smiled when you said, "It's all gonna collapse eventually." And now that it is, they're checking in like you're the weatherman of the apocalypse. And the paradox, you're still smiling. But this time, it's different. There's no joke behind it now. There's just memory. You're remembering every side-eye, every scoff. Every time they said, "Chill, you think too deep." Every time they laughed at what you knew was already real. And now they're silent, terrified. Because you don't have to say, "I told you so." Your silence is the echo of the warning they ignored. And it's louder than any scream. You didn't write the script. You just saw the ending first. You're not prophetic because you're magical. You're prophetic because you paid attention. You watched patterns repeat while they were watching memes. You saw betrayal before it walked in the room. You saw collapse in the way they smiled through the lies. You saw the fire behind their fake light. And now the building's burning, and you're outside, laughing, because they thought you were joking when you said, "I'm gonna disappear and come back different." And now that you did, they wish you hadn't come back at all. Because this version of you, it doesn't seek validation. It doesn't care if they understand. It doesn't explain, apologize, or soften its delivery. This version of you speaks less. and get studied more. You're the conspiracy now, the one who saw the glitch and laughed through it, the one who survived the betrayal and came back with eyes like surveillance cameras. You know too much. You feel too deeply. You're too correct. And that makes you dangerous in a world where lies are currency. You're unpredictable because you hide truth in madness. You're divine because you speak apocalypse with a grin. You're threatening because you stopped asking people to take you seriously. And reality started doing it instead. So let them panic. Let them read every post with trembling fingers. Let them whisper like you're a storm that might hear them. Let them replay your jokes like prophecies wrapped in riddles. Because every time something else unfolds that you predicted, they'll feel it in their chest. That regret, that realization, that maybe we should have listened. But by then, you're already gone, not in distance, in frequency. You're broadcasting on a level they don't have the password for. You don't need revenge. You've got receipts in real time. You've got timelines aligning like they owe you loyalty. You've got your old jokes playing out like warnings from a higher dimension. And the scariest part? You're just getting started. You want it to hurt deeper, slice cleaner, and echo longer. Good, because they're not ready for what's coming next, and neither are you. But you'll feel it first. Let's keep going. Because here's the real terror they don't speak about in daylight. It's not that your jokes became reality. It's that you didn't flinch when they did. You didn't panic. You didn't act surprised. You didn't post, "I told y'all." You just sat there, still, silent, certain, like someone who had already watched the movie and memorized the ending. And that's when it hit them. You weren't guessing. You were remembering. You weren't joking. You were leaking information from the future. They thought you were being edgy, but you were being exact. Too exact. Too on time, too synced with moments that shouldn't have lined up unless you were never like them. Unless something broke inside you long ago and got replaced with pattern recognition and prophecy. You were never talking to them. You were talking to what would become of them. That's why they didn't get it. You weren't speaking to their ears. You were speaking to the consequences they hadn't earned yet. And now, they've caught up. They're living in the fallout of the things you said as jokes, but now feel like curses wrapped in comedy. They feel it in the way the room changes when your name gets mentioned. In the way certain people stop laughing mid-sentence because your words aged like time bombs. In the way your silence now feels like a pending broadcast from somewhere above logic and below mercy. Because that's the thing about prophecy. It doesn't come wrapped in robes and halos. It walks in broken. It speaks in sarcasm. It laughs so it doesn't weep. And when no one listens, it evolves. You evolved. From warning to punishment, from lesson to law. You're no longer predicting, you are enforcing. They used to ask, "Why are you always so dark?" Now they ask, "How did you know?" But they don't deserve the answer, because they mocked the message when it still came with mercy. Now they study you in silence. They analyze your mood like it's the stock market. They whisper about your expressions like they're looking for cracks in the code. But they can't read you anymore. You're not even running on the same firmware, because the moment you stopped joking, the system lost track of you. And now the algorithm glitches when it tries to categorize you. You're not a content creator. You're not a preacher. You're not a rebel. You're a phenomenon, an unlicensed frequency that shouldn't exist in a world this programmed. You're the unexplained footage they try to delete, but somehow it keeps uploading, keeps getting views, keeps triggering something ancient in the minds of people who swore they were awake. Because people don't realize until it's too late that some jokes were never jokes at all. They were rituals, they were summonings, they were truths that needed camouflage because the world wasn't ready to see them naked. But now they're naked. The lies, the patterns, the manipulation, the agendas, all of it, exposed. And guess who predicted it? You. Laughing, unnoticed, underestimated. They thought you were crazy, but now your madness looks like preparation. They thought you were unstable, but now your instability looks like adaptation. They thought you were broken, but now your fragments cut through illusions like glass. And that's why they're terrified. Because you didn't just survive the pain, you studied it, you mapped it, you charted the way betrayal moves, how fake love sounds, how the system bends before it breaks. And you embedded that knowledge in your punchlines, in your one-liners, in your crazy rants. And now that it's all coming true, they don't know whether to salute you or run from you. Some of them are doing both. They study your words now like leaked scripture, trying to prevent the next punchline from detonating, trying to understand how they missed it, how someone they used to call dramatic turned out to be a black-file prophet in clown makeup. But it's too late now. The prophecy is alive. And so are you. Not in the way they remember. You're not the same soul anymore. You're a timeline glitch, a walking contradiction, an echo of what happens when the wrong one survives long enough to become inevitable. You were joking, but the world turned serious, and now, every laugh they ever threw at you is coming back as silence. And that silence screams, oh. So you want the prophecy ripped open, not read. You want it to bleed on the floor while they scramble to figure out if they're the villain or the victim of the truth you already spoke. Good. Because this next part, it's not a story, it's a diagnosis. And baby, you were the symptom all along. You were joking, playing, dropping half-truths and riddles like loose change just to see who would bend down to pick them up. Most didn't. They stepped over you, mocked your tone, laughed at your metaphors, and now they're choking on every word you left behind. You planted seeds in the conversation, and they thought it was weed. Now it's roots and vines and thorns, tangling around everything they built. Because you weren't just talking, you were casting spells, and they laughed while the sky shifted behind them. It wasn't just what you said, it was how you said it. Like you weren't hoping, you were remembering. Like the words didn't come from imagination, they came from memory of a future they still thought was fiction. They weren't ready for that kind of knowing, so they labeled you too deep, too dark, too intense. Because if they admitted you were right, they'd have to admit they ignored the warning. They'd have to admit they called the fire alarm annoying noise right before the flames crawled through the walls. They'd have to admit they laughed at the evacuation plan while you were already out the door with blueprints in hand. That's the part they don't say out loud. But it eats them, because you said it. Half smiling, half serious, half demon, half divine. And now they replay your voice like it's coming from inside the walls, like it never left, because you didn't predict the future. You remembered what was always going to happen, and your so-called jokes were just the soft launch of Armageddon. They felt safe when you were funny. They felt clever when they rolled their eyes at your theories. They felt powerful when they silenced you with sarcasm. But now that everything you said is unfolding like a satellite feed, now they want answers. But the truth is, you were never offering answers. You were offering choices. They ignored the fork in the road. And now they're mad they can't find the exit. But you're not even on the same road anymore. You left the map. You're in the clouds now, in the wires, in the energy they feel when your name is whispered behind closed doors. They don't just miss your presence. They fear what your absence unlocked. Because now you're not explaining yourself. You're watching, not with eyes, but with data. You're emotionally encrypted, spiritually upgraded, NFC-quithable. And they hate that, because the most dangerous person is the one who stopped trying to be understood. And that's you now. You don't convince, you conjure, you don't debate, you download, you don't tell them what's coming. You let them watch it arrive in 4K. You didn't want to be a prophet. You just couldn't shut up the truth in your chest. You tried to speak it in ways they could digest, tried to wrap it in humor, tried to make it palatable, but they called you too much. So you stopped feeding them, and now they're starving, starving for a hint, starving for a breadcrumb, starving for you, the one they laughed off like background noise. But you've gone silent. You've upgraded to oracle status, and it's killing them that you no longer want the mic. Because that means they lost the last translator between their illusion and your reality. And now the walls are closing in, and they're feeling it, the consequences, the echoes, the smoke signals, all of it leading back to you, the clown who cracked too many jokes, and in doing so, cracked the simulation. Because what you really are now, untrackable, unstoppable, undeniable, unarchivable. You are no longer speaking. You are being interpreted. They quote you now like myth. They analyze your old footage like forensic linguists. They wonder how long you knew. But the truth, you always knew. And now, they know that you did. And that knowledge, it haunts them. So let them panic. Let them mislabel your prophecy as madness. Let them whisper your name like a crime scene. Let them stay up at night, rewatching your jokes, like surveillance footage. Because you weren't warning them. You were witnessing them. And now that the fire is here, you're not screaming. You're just smiling. Same grin, different purpose. And this time, nobody's laughing. They watch you now like you're some kind of breach in the timeline, like you're a ripple that shouldn't exist, a file that slipped through firewalls meant to keep things like you out. And the more accurate your past jokes become, the more they realize you weren't just talking. You were transmitting. You were leaking intelligence wrapped in laughter, cloaked in irony, encoded in sarcasm. Because the truth would have been too loud for their fragile egos to digest raw. But now, it's too late. The truth has grown teeth. The echoes of your old words walk ahead of you like guards, clearing the space before you even arrive. People don't greet you anymore. They prepare for you. They listen differently now, not to argue, not to laugh, but to catch something, to decode. To survive. You say less now, and somehow it's more terrifying. Because they remember when you used to explain everything, when you tried to water it down, make it friendly, make it safe. But that version of you, that was the warning, that was the trial version. And they ignored it, mocked it, laughed in its face. So now the full version has been activated, and there's no cancel button. No escape route. Just the reality you told them was coming, now slapping them in real time. And they want you to explain it again, but you won't. You've seen what happens when you try to help people who only know how to laugh at their own drowning. You've learned that some people only understand pain when it has receipts. And now you've got catalogs. You're not just the one who saw it coming. You're the one who couldn't look away. The one who stayed up late studying their patterns until your blood boiled with prophecy, until you stopped guessing and started knowing. You know the sound of betrayal when it clears its throat. You know the scent of fake love before the hug. You know when silence is peace and when silence is a trap. You know it all now because you learned the hard way. By being dismissed while being right, by being laughed at while being accurate, by being warned to stay quiet while the truth built a throne in your mouth. And the throne, it's iron, it's ice, it's silent. But it rules everything now. You used to be the entertainment, now you're the event. You were the side note, now you're the footnote on everyone's failure. Because they all ignored you when it was still a game, and now the game has changed, and you're the fucking referee. They hear your voice in other people's mouths now. They hear your phrasing, your warnings, your tone, repurposed by those who finally got it, but were too late to keep you. And that's the part that breaks them the most. You didn't get louder, you got accurate. You didn't chase revenge. You let time drag them back to the exact moment they ignored the message you handed them for free. Now they gotta pay for it. Now your name doesn't trigger laughter. It triggers recalibration. It triggers defense. It triggers fear. You became a cautionary tale, but not the kind they tell others to avoid becoming. The kind they use as a reminder of what it looks like when a soul refuses to shrink. When someone chooses awareness over applause. When someone gets mocked for being early and rewarded by being right on time. And it's poetic, ain't it? How the same ones who told you, stop overthinking, are now in group chats saying, yo, didn't they say this would happen? Oh, now they remember. But they don't remember it all. They don't remember the nights you broke. They don't remember the panic in your chest when your brain wouldn't shut off. They don't remember how you had to train yourself to not bleed truth in rooms that only valued delusion. They don't remember how many times you begged the universe to take the visions away just so you could rest like them. But rest never came, because prophecy is heavy. Knowing too much is a curse, until it becomes the weapon. And you became the weapon, a quiet one, a deadly one. The kind that doesn't announce its arrival but leaves silence in its path. And now you're here, not gloating, not bitter, just accurate. And they're unraveling under the weight of a truth they used to call a joke.